So you want to slaughter your enemies and drink their blood as an Ogryn Skullbreaker. What's going on, guys? My name is Tychus, and as promised, I have put together a build guide for the Ogryn class. So in this video, I'm going to be going over the specific feats, weapon choices, and my curios setup. If you guys find yourself struggling on higher difficulties, especially on Heresy, you might want to give this build a try, as this is the build that has done very well for me, especially on the Heresy difficulty. Also, I'm going to be going over some useful tips for the Ogryn class, especially on these higher difficulties, to keep you and your squad alive. And then at the end of the video, I'm going to have some gameplay footage just showcasing the build. First of all, I'd like to mention that the new balancing patch is currently out, and there have been some changes to each of the classes. For example, the Ogryn Skullbreaker now has 2 charges to the grenades now instead of 1. It's not necessarily the change that I would want for the Ogryn's grenade, but hey, I'll take 2 instead of 1, so take what you can get, right? Also, I expect more changes to come, as the developers at Fatshark have mentioned that throughout the weeks they are going to be releasing more and more balancing changes for the classes, all the way until the official release. So we're going to have to keep an eye out on that, and I'm looking forward to a lot more builds. But anyways, guys, let's move on to the build. Now, as you can see here, the weapon that I'm using is the Mark 6 cleaver and the Mark II Ripper gun. And then these are my specific curios that I'll go into in a little bit. But I got really lucky with this legendary cleaver, as it was offered as one of the items for the weekly vendor. You don't necessarily need this to be legendary in order to make this build work, but it just synergizes really well for the build itself. The reason why I chose the Mark 6 cleaver is because of the heavy attack spam that you can do. We're going to be spamming heavy attack a lot. That's going to help us regenerate our toughness. It's going to apply bleeds. Overall, it's just going to help us be a lot more tanky on the front lines when we're fighting against the hordes and stuff like that. So, and the reason why I chose this one also is because it has 2 vanguard attacks. If you notice, the other cleavers, they're going to have a different attack pattern. Even though this isn't horizontal, this is more like a diagonal strike. It actually works really well. That's the reason why I chose I would choose the Mark 6. Specifically if you don't have this legendary cleaver, right? But as you can see, the stats for this is actually a beast. But anyways, moving on to the secondary weapon, the reason why I chose the Ripper gun is just because I feel like this weapon is it's so versatile, right? You can clear hordes with it, you can shoot people at range with it. I know the Ogryn class kind of struggles a little bit with enemies afar. And I feel like the Ripper gun, actually, the accuracy is actually not that bad. You can either choose the Mark II or you can choose the Mark 6. It's completely up to you. But this gun has done wonders for me, especially against range units as well. It helps takes down a lot of the elites, the specialty units as well. You'll see how effective the Ripper gun can be at the end of the video where I'm showcasing the build. But honestly, it's completely up to you. You could go with the Grenadier Gauntlet as well, or the Rumbler. The heavy stubber is nice, but I just find that the accuracy for this is just not good for far away. It's amazing when you're dealing with close range hordes, but then again, that's why we're cleaving everything up front anyways, right? So that's the reason why I chose the Ripper gun. So as for my curio setup, I got really lucky with this as well. This legendary drop was from a tier 2, a level 2 difficulty, so I got really lucky with this. But anyways, I am basically stacking health instead. I have 2 health and 2 health right here. I'm at 18% and 19%, and then I have 1 wound. That's to help out with Heresy, because you do lose a chunk of your health when you play on the Heresy difficulty. This is what's kind of worked really well for me to stack health. Initially, I was stacking toughness, but it just seems to me like having the health and then having the extra wound just does a lot better for me in Heresy. But I'm going to do a lot more tests later on just to try to stack toughness and see how well that works out as a different build. Okay, so moving on to the feats, this is the setup that I currently have for this build. I'm going to go into each individual one and talk a little bit about it. But as for the first tier, we have the best form of defense, replenishing 20% of toughness on hitting multiple enemies with a single heavy attack. This build is literally going to be spamming heavy attack all the time, so this is what's going to keep you alive, especially on the front line when fighting all of the hordes. It's a no-brainer for this one. As for tier 2, we have to choose Blood and Thunder for the bleed stack on a heavy melee attack. Again, like I said, we're going to be spamming heavy attack constantly. So this is just going to be beneficial and added extra damage, and also it's going to give us some damage reduction for our tier 4 talent. But as for tier 3, I chose Bullfighter. Bullfighter gives 10% Bull Rush cooldown when you or an ally in Coherency kills an elite enemy. This literally synergizes so well with this talent right here, Nonstop Violence. Because on Heresy difficulty, there's so many elites that you kill that your Bull Rush, your ability will literally be up all the time, like 100% of the time. It's incredible how good this talent is. And then moving on to tier 4, we do have Bloodthirst. 10% damage resistance per bleeding enemy in melee range. That stacks 5 times. With spamming heavy attacks, you can literally get this all the way up to max stacks. And especially if you're playing with either a veteran sharpshooter or playing with a zealot now who are also running bleed builds, you can literally have this 50% damage reduction for melee units up constantly. So this is actually really good to keep us alive on the front lines as well. And then as for the tier 5, this is completely up to you. I would either go with Payback Time or you can go with Raging Bull, but I chose Raging Bull just because, again, we're constantly spamming heavy attacks and we're hitting multiple targets and we're just cleaving everything. So you can literally get a huge damage boost just by cleaving all of your enemies. And as for our last feat, we have the Nonstop Violence. Replenish 10% toughness per Bull Rush hit. This literally keeps us alive, especially during times where we really do need it. In the middle of a horde and stuff like that, say you just can't cleave enough and you're just getting overwhelmed and maybe you're stuck in a corner, this will literally keep you alive and get you out of the corner as well. You could go ahead and go for Bulgor if you want. Maybe if you want more damage or you just want to stack more bleeds, but it's completely up to you. It's interchangeable. You could go for Bulgor or you can go for Nonstop Violence. I just choose Nonstop Violence just because it keeps me alive a little bit more, but completely up to you. So in the next portion of the video, I wanted to go over some gameplay tips as the Ogryn Skullbreaker. If you find yourself struggling on some of the higher difficulty levels, these gameplay tips just might help you out a little bit. So first and foremost, in my humble opinion, the Ogryn Skullbreaker class is not a tank. Yes, we are tanky and yes, we are more durable than other classes, but we are not a tank. And the reason why I say that is because there is no real healer in the game and there is no real taunt mechanic in the game, right? As a tank, you're supposed to take all the aggro and take all the attention of all the enemy mobs and they're supposed to be focusing on you. That doesn't exist in this game, so that's my take on it. On a Ogryn Skullbreaker is that we are not a tank. We are durable, yes, and we are tanky per se, but we are not a tank. And the reason why I say that is because I want to get a lot of the newer players out of that mindset of thinking that you're a tank, that you can just charge forward and basically take all the hits from everybody. You're going to notice really quickly that you're going to go down super, super fast. So I just want to say that initially so that everybody gets it out of their mind that we are not a tank class. So then, Tychus, if we are not a tank class, then what are we? In my humble opinion, we are 100% a bruiser / support class. We do really, really well at protecting our allies who are a lot squishier than us. We have amazing CC and stagger with our melee abilities. We specialize in destroying hordes of enemies. And to top it off, we have Loyal Protector, which prevents us from being interrupted when it comes to reviving our teammates. So the general playstyle of the Skullbreaker should be to protect your allies and to peel for them whenever they need to protect your sharpshooter and to protect your psyker who can take care of the elite units, specialty units. We are there to basically bodyguard them and we need to stay around them. We should not be charging head on into a crowd because that is 100% how you're going to just get killed immediately. Stay around your teammates and protect them at all times. The next tip that I wanted to talk about was how to utilize Bull Rush. This ability here is absolutely one of the best ultimates in the game. The versatility of this ability is amazing. You can use it offensively, you can use it defensively, you can use it as a repositioning tool. There's just so many ways you can utilize the Bull Rush ability. Especially the fact that we have this talented, it turns it into a defensive ability. If we need toughness replenished, we can actually use it to replenish our toughness. If our allies are in need of help, we can use this to help clear the mobs for them. Or if you get trapped in a corner with hordes of enemies, honestly, if you're playing as the Ogryn Skullbreaker, you should literally be using this ability on cooldown. Especially when you have Bullfighter talented, this ability is going to come up constantly. I need to get used to doing that too, but I see a lot of newer Ogryn players, they kind of hold on to the Bull Rush ability. Honestly, you should literally be using this as much as possible. And the good thing about this is that you can actually control when you want to stop. There are certain situations where you are just going to charge maybe like a few feet in front of you just to kind of knock people down, but you can stop yourself too. You don't have to commit to the entire Bull Rush. Just keep that in mind as well. And the last tip that I have for the Ogryn Skullbreaker class is generally for newer players to the genre. I see a lot of newer players using the Battle Maul or the Slab Shield as their weapon. I'm not saying that the Slab Shield is a bad weapon. It's actually a really good weapon. It's just that I see a lot of newer players kind of gravitate towards the shield play just because enemy lasfire ends up like destroying them. And a lot of newer players I see, they kind of just stand in front and they kind of just block. That's something that you really don't want to do as a Skullbreaker. In my opinion, you should really be a bruiser. You should be kind of like charging all over the place and staggering everything and literally just cleaving the hell out of like all of your enemies, right? So you definitely don't want to be sitting there and just blocking, because you're taking yourself out of the fight and you're generally not helping out your entire squad just by sitting there and blocking. Again, like I said, it's not a bad weapon. It's really good. I just think it teaches newer players to not utilize other mechanics that are in the game. So like I said, if you are a newer player and you're still getting used to the mechanics of Darktide, I highly recommend that you choose a different weapon. That way it forces you to be more reliant on your dodging and your pushing. Now I know a lot of people think that, you know, the Ogryn is a big, beefy, slow class, but that is far from the truth. You're gonna see in my gameplay footage that I'm constantly dodging and bobbing and weaving. But Tychus, what about the enemy las units? They're gonna destroy me without the shield. Yes, that is true. Enemy las units are still very dangerous to us as an Ogryn. But however, if you learn how to dodge properly as an Ogryn Skullbreaker, you're gonna avoid a lot of unnecessary damage from enemy las units, especially when you're ducking and weaving behind corners, behind cover. You just need to learn how to utilize it to your advantage. And that's pretty much it for the build itself. It's definitely helped me clear the higher difficulty levels in the game. Go ahead and try this build out for yourself and let me know in the comments below how it works out for you. Anyways guys, I hope you guys liked the build. I'll leave you to some gameplay footage now, and I will see you guys in the next one. Peace.
Roll up that sniper!
Right in the fragging edge!
Grenade out!